Gentlemen No Class is proud to be a part of the HC Universal Network. Gentlemen No Class is produced, mixed, and edited by M5 Studios.
This podcast contains explicit language and is intended for adult audiences. The views and opinions of Gentlemen No Class are strictly for comedic purposes and should not be taken literally. For instance, like this disclaimer. Now grab yourself a pint and enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of Gentlemen No Class, a podcast when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. I'm Rob.
Paul.
And Norm.
And we are the hosts for tonight's podcast. Jake may be joining us. We're not sure. He's running late, and we got tired of waiting on him. So joining us in studio tonight is my cousin-in-law.
Yeah, I don't
my
really
cousin.
know how you put it.
My cousin-in-law.
Well,
right?
I don't know what that relationship is. It's my wife's first cousin, so
I always just refer to you as my cousin.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
There you go.
So Norm is a amateur. You play rugby around town in Houston.
I do.
For what's your football club called?
We are the Houston Arrows. The Houston Arrows Rugby Football Club.
Not AEROS.
Not like the hockey arrows.
Yeah, I was supposed to say
arrows like
a bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow, yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
I don't really know what the hell an AERO is.
I
like
assume
an
it has something to do with
aeroplane.
like an aeroplane. Like their old symbol was an
Oh, okay. I knew the name. I just
An
didn't know
aeroplane.
the logo.
yeah, like
I
the
don't
Red
really
Hot
want-
Chili Pepper song, you know, aeroplane.
Maybe.
My air.
There you
That
go.
one.
See, he's got it.
I forgot, or I don't know.
It's not thrice. No,
Yeah.
you don't know it.
Well, I like Red Hot Chili Peppers. I just I'm not that huge a fan.
So we're podcasting tonight amidst the everybody stay home. We're under a quarantine, so we decided that what better way to do that than to leave our house, everybody to leave their house and come over here and podcast. So
Come into this small room with
Right.
other people. Yeah.
that has probably not been disinfected in quite a while, but I don't see how the coronavirus could get in here because basically I never leave this house, so it'd be really difficult for it to get in here to begin with. Anyway, let's talk about the coronavirus. Me and Jake talked about it a little bit, and then things got really serious this past week. So let's talk about they've shut down all major sporting events, every major music event. Basically, gatherings of 10 or more are just nixed. You're just done. Disney has delayed the release of the Black Widow movie because they want people to actually be able to go to the theaters and see it.
I believe Disneyland shut down too.
Disneyland
Sunday.
and
Disneyland's
Disney
closed,
World both shut down. They're telling people to work from home if they can. It's causing a huge hit in a lot of different industries. Norm, you went to college for hospitality, didn't you?
Yeah. I went to UH, the Conrad N. Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management at the University of Houston. Yeah. But I haven't worked in hospitality since 2009.
So, but you have a pretty good grasp of like what something like this can do to the hospitality industry.
Yeah, because I haven't worked in the hospitality industry since 2009 when there was the previous financial collapse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when everybody's getting laid off and all, people weren't traveling, everybody was having their meetings remotely. So, instead of having hotel rooms for meetings or for conferences, everybody was just canceling everything. And that was when that was kind of the writing on the wall, like, your days are limited.
Yeah.
Especially if I was new, fresh out of college, I'm the youngest guy, lowest guy on the totem pole or highest guy. Which level on the totem pole is the
You would think that you would cut the
worst
highest
level?
off, because if you cut the lowest, the whole totem pole falls down.
Right. You'd think
But
the lowest part would be the most important.
But the analogy is the lowest man on the totem pole.
Yeah.
So, but
Fuck them.
Yeah, I was that guy.
yeah.
Well, I mean, the people that got that analogy like kind of screwed out. I see what you guys mean.
Yeah.
So
Well, anyway,
it's definitely going to take a huge hit on this entire country. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before, and I don't know. Hopefully, we never see anything like it again.
Yeah,
but I mean, there was a quote that was going around on the internet that somebody was like, in the end, when this is all over, we'll never know if we did too much, but we'll definitely know if we do too little. And kind of talking about like what the issue is with this, it's not really. A lot of people are under the impression that it's like, oh, this is a deadly virus and things like that. But if you read the reports on it, it's not the fact that the issue is, it's not that it's deadly. I mean, it is deadly to, people with compromised immune systems, some older folks. The problem is the taxing that it does on our medical system. So like, basically, like if everybody was just like, fuck it, I can get over this and, in a couple of days, it's not a big deal. But the people that really struggle with it, that have to be on a ventilator or something like that, there's only so many ventilators and so many hospital beds to go around. So if everybody gets it at once, we don't have the equipment to basically to handle that.
Aren't we are also low on tests? Or like testing for?
Well, we didn't.
I've heard. Are we good on that now?
No, I think that the tests are still few and far between, or hard to come by, and stuff like that.
Like basically, I believe I think you have to show symptoms. Unfortunately,
it's not even show symptoms. You have to have. You have to. It was earlier in the week. Like they wouldn't even give you the test unless you had been in contact with somebody who had been out of country. So. Like then they started giving it to healthcare workers and people that have to travel, things like that. Unless you're the San Antonio Spurs, and then the entire team got all of that city's tests. Yeah. In one night. A
lot of celebrities too.
One night. Yeah. If you're a celebrity, you get a test right away. It doesn't matter. They tested the entire. It was either the Spurs or the Utah Jazz, one of them.
I know what you're talking about.
They tested the entire team in one night, and they were like, that was all of the city's allocated tests for like the month because everybody, it was in short supply. So we didn't
cocksuckers.
We didn't react fast enough back when we could have ramped up the test production and things like that. But they had, just to give you a little analogy story, kind of anecdote, one of the nurses that works here at the house went to go get tested just to make sure she didn't have it. Yeah. She's not showing symptoms. Pretty sure she does. We're 90% sure she didn't have it. But she went to go get tested, and that there's these testing lines, and she got in the line at 9 a.m. this morning and was still in line at 4 p.m. this afternoon.
Jesus.
Is it one of those drive-through ones?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're setting up mobile spots, right? Is that what it is?
And then I imagine she won't get her results. Like, I don't know how fast the turnaround is.
2 days, I think, something like that.
Yeah, it's not that long.
It's like, I did hear, I don't know how true this is, but like that they developed a test in Ireland that can give results in 15 minutes. So it's like a 15-minute test. And that was like within a day of all the pubs closing in Ireland.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah. There was there was a joke going around about that. Also, in the Canadians were working on a vaccine, and they were like, funny how this comes out right after they cancel NHL hockey for the season.
There's no hockey to watch, so shit, we might as well just cure this global disease, I guess.
So, in my industry, we are still considered essential personnel. Because people have to have their cars for emergencies and things like that.
That's good. So
but one of the I mean, I work from home anyway.
Yeah.
So it's no change for me. We have. I mean, it is no change for me. Like it's just business as usual. The only difference is that. And Norm, maybe you can talk about this a little bit. Like my daughter is basically like out of school indefinitely at this point. Like they said she's not going back until like at least April 9th.
Yeah, that's what HISD is the same way. We're as of now, April 10th is the date that they're throwing out there. But like, who knows? Yeah. It depends on how like. If the number of new cases or what they're monitoring the situation, I don't really know. But yeah, right now
I think that's pretty much the exact actual basis what you're saying as far as when all this can, I guess when we start seeing, damn, It just seems like the more shit they shut down, the more serious it's getting, obviously. And at this point, I don't know what would be next.
I think it's just more like everything's being shut down so it doesn't get worse. Like, I think that's like the whole point of it.
Yeah, the whole point of it is like if you have...
I guess they're reaching... Well, it's kind of getting to the limits of where they're going to... of course, certain things are going to be available.
Well, so imagine building a sandcastle, right? So like you have a certain height you can build to, and that certain height equals all of the available hospital beds and medical resources for the country. Mm-hmm. So you have the same amount of sand. If you pile it all together and build a big tower, you're over and done with it quicker, but you exhaust all those resources, and you can't. It goes above that line of, you know, we have this many hospital beds, ventilators all at one time. Whereas if you take that sand and kind of, you know, lay it out, it's the same mass.
Yeah.
Basically, the goal is not to prevent everybody from getting it. It's just to prevent everybody from getting it at the same time.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because that'd be fucked because of the shortages of supplies and
right.
shit. Fucked.
Yeah, because if you can treat it, which it's a very treatable disease from what I understand, but only if you have, you know, the respirators, the environment with which to treat it. But
I've been hearing, I don't know what it is, man. I'm getting confused, but people are saying like they haven't found a cure. Are you talking about like a vaccine?
A vaccine.
Oh yeah, a vaccine's gonna take forever.
I've heard years. Like they said it
a year.
Well,
and a half.
yeah, because so what? Even if they map the coding and the protein structure of the virus, even if they come up with a vaccine today that shows effective, they will not administer it on a mass scale until the first initial human trials have had it in their system for 14 months.
Damn.
Because you have to see how the body is going to react to it.
Yeah, you can't just roll out a vaccine to millions of people and there'll be unknown side effects we don't know.
Exactly. You saw I Am Legend, right? Like that's what happened. They gave everybody a vaccine for cancer, and then there was a small percentage of the population that turned into those. I mean, that's how the zombie apocalypse starts. This feels like the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Zombies, but yeah. Well, maybe not.
Definitely has all the markers of a
right,
an apocalyptic.
I mean, it really feels like a movie.
Although, okay, so the apocalypse, interesting word. So apocalypse just means like a new beginning. It's not like the end of things. It's a re-beginning or So you could, in a way, argue that this is an apocalypse because I don't think we're going to go back to just like normal business as usual. I think that
I can't imagine how long it's going to take and.
But once it does get contained and we've got a vaccine or whatever, I think we're still going to be, I guess, more conscious of personal hygiene for one basic level, and the spread of diseases, and just
more
how global supply chains work. Just everybody's like everyone's going to reevaluate how we do things.
Globalization, globalization in general, I think, is going to be reevaluated and looked at as, you know, like what are the pros and cons of having all of these things integrated vertically, you know, or horizontally across different platforms all over the globe, and things moving in and out of different commerce sectors and things like that. It's kind of odd that, you know, we've avoided this for such a long time. A global pandemic that has affected the United States in such a way that this has affected us, because honestly, like, this is like as bad as it gets, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a lot, if you think about the fallout of this, and maybe it's because I'm closer to it than maybe some of you guys are, but a lot of my friends are like working musicians, and all the bars and restaurants are shut down.
Yep.
So a lot of them, like, that's their only source of income. So, I mean, in a lot of bars and stuff like that, like this, a lot of bars are going to shut down permanently. They're not going to be able to bounce back after this.
So theaters, I mean, I'm an actor also, and I haven't acted recently, not in the past year, but I still know a lot of actors and musicians, and so theaters are closed, so you can't. Some are doing like they're doing like live streaming of plays, or filming it, so you can actually, you know, people can watch, you know, all this art that people have created and put a lot of work into, but you can't go and see, you know, live theater or live music or
exactly,
you know,
the live stream thing. The live stream thing has been a lot of people are kicking that off. I've seen. I just can't see, like, for me, like, I don't know, I'm not going to tune in and watch a cover band live stream. You know what I mean? Like if
Dropkick Murphys live streamed on St. Patty's Day.
If it's an artist that I like my friend Libby, like she did a live stream, or she may be doing that tonight. But you know, like she's an original artist, so like there's a lot of stuff that like she has a fan base that people will tune into, stuff like that. My band is like a cover band. Nobody wants to live stream a cover band doing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's definitely more of like a bar room.
Situation. You just show up and hear the band. You know what I mean? It's not. Bands are good or bad, but
it's part of the like the ambience.
Exactly. Shit. Like, I mean, if you really wanted to feel like you were at the bar, you know, bars are delivering food and are allowed to deliver alcohol now.
Let's say that.
That's going to be a hard cat to put back in the bag. I mean, you're going to see that's going to survive business. That's going to float business. A lot of businesses. And I think that like you're going to have a really hard time convincing the state Congress that's not a good, like, oh yeah, that's a terrible idea. You're going to have a really hard time convincing people of that.
Well, it's like, so living in New York, you can get anything delivered. Anything. We got alcohol delivered all the time. Like the guy lived across the hall from me in my apartment building. He worked down at the liquor store down the street, and he, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was doing earlier. I've been doing it for a while, but I figured now's the time to do it. But I was doing DoorDash, and within like an hour, I had like 5 hits. It was like nonstop. Like people were just fucking going
Pictures
crazy.
of margaritas and stuff.
No, not alcohol, but food. But you know, people were they're not doing shit. A lot of people were. The demand was very overwhelming. Like, man, I'm paying pretty decent money in an hour. You know, wasn't that bad.
Nice.
So you know, like that's all I'm doing because like I can't find work. I'm trying. My dad's business is so slow that there's like one job I think I got going on with him next week, but I talked to him, a recruiter at this one temp agency. I worked in San Diego. They're here too, and you know he's trying to find me work, but it's getting kind of slow. He's saying like fuck. So our field, you know, a lot of people in the trade are suffering too now because nobody's like wants to hire or nobody's at an office to do
because
to be
everything's
around
kind of at a standstill.
Yeah, you know, it's construction site too. There's a lot of fucking people too.
That's true.
So it's like, it's kind of fucking us, but
man, in construction sites, they wear all the PPE anyway. Like they're already in masks.
But they're not.
You don't wear masks, though.
You know,
we don't wear masks. You know, depending what you're doing, but you know, different what trade too. But
yeah,
you know, I don't know. Like I don't know if they're willing to hand off all those masks, or I don't know. But that's just from what I know, and some of the guys told me to feel that it's getting slow. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of local businesses that are stepping up and, you know, businesses that are, I wouldn't say profiting from this, but they're seeing a surge in, you know, business coming that way. Grocery stores.
Yeah, because everybody's hoarding and shit.
H-E-B is hiring people, you know, $15 an hour, $17 an hour in the warehouse, like bad. On the spot. Amazon's hiring people to work from home to handle orders and customer service stuff, and they're paying $15 to $16 an hour. You know,
they limited deliveries. Like for Amazon's only doing like certain medical stuff and like high demand shit.
No, they're prioritizing.
They're
prioritizing.
Okay, because I heard recently even too somebody was saying they can't. Oh, they can't. They won't deliver this at the moment. Certain things, you know. But I'm pretty sure it's something bullshit like a fucking.
I don't know. Shit that I ordered like a Wi-Fi like signal extender just the other day, and it came in a couple days. So.
Yeah,
I ordered a couple of packs of guitar picks, and they were here like the next day. So I mean, I don't think that they're limiting things like that. They're
guitar picks are priority. Though,
yeah, that is priority. But that's what I'm saying. Like they're prioritizing like medical equipment and stuff like that. So, there's so many stories that have popped up with this coronavirus thing. So, there was a guy and his brother. Did y'all hear about this? There was a guy and his brother in Tennessee that when news of this started breaking, he went around all the surrounding counties and bought up basically all the hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes.
I've heard of this guy.
Masks, anything he could get his hands on, and basically like resold them, started an Amazon store and started selling them on Amazon for like $50 a roll of toilet paper and like $30 or $40 a bottle of hand sanitizer and shit like that. but Amazon found out about it. So Amazon has an algorithm that's like it adjusts prices automatically on supply via supply and demand. So their own algorithm was charging a lot for stuff before they caught on and figured out that like, oh, like we're charging like $60 a bottle on hand sanitizer. We should like cap this. You know what I mean? Because of the demand was so high. So when they figured out, they adjusted their algorithm, and then they went after all these people that were price gouging on all this stuff. So they shut down this guy's store on Amazon and eBay. eBay shut him down too. And he was stuck with like a whole storage unit with like 18,000 bottles of hand sanitizer.
I saw
that he spent all this money on.
I saw the picture. Fucking idiot.
Fucking asshole. Exactly. So
we don't need people like him in our fucking in this world.
You should see the story.
He's a fucking shyster.
They did a story, an interview with this guy, and he was like, I'm trying to make money to feed my family. Like he saw nothing wrong with what he was doing. He's like, I'm just meeting market
mindset,
demand.
That's a lot of people have that. Oh, I'm just doing the best I can for me and my family. It's like, well, you can't like.
Yeah, drug dealers say that too. So that's cool.
No, a lot of
I
drug
support
dealers.
him. I support him. This guy's a monster, though. Fucking piece of shit.
Yeah,
I don't know. People can justify anything. Like I was hearing a story just today about scams, like email scams. Like, oh, click here for this coronavirus map to map out where the outbreaks are. And it's like,
careful.
And it's like, oh, you need to download this software, and then bing bang boom, you got like a malware in your system.
Yeah,
and it's like
fucking. Yeah, now my fucking bank account, my debit card got hacked on Facebook because I used to post. I used to, throw in some money for advertisement for our Facebook for this podcast, and I had my PayPal account linked to it, and they set up a John Deere tractor trailer page for sale. So they charge like so many separate charges, like over $450 on for advertisement to put on Facebook for this tractor. Mm-hmm. So I started seeing all these messages saying, "Hey, is this for sale? Is this still for available?" It's like, what the fuck is all this shit? And that's when I realized, I saw all those charges on my account. It said Facebook. I didn't know what Facebook was charging me. It's like, oh, this makes sense because it showed a random page on my profile that I was managing that I never saw. That's not me. I only have 2 things I manage, and I had 3, and that wasn't one of them. And so I got to the bottom of that, but it took I don't know. I'm still waiting for some charges to clear through because they overdraft my account big time, and they fucked me.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. God, what an inconvenience.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on, now that we're getting with all this, the coronavirus and stuff like that. They're doing, a lot of the breweries in town are doing, giveaways and drive-through pickup 6-packs and 12-packs and whatnot.
God bless them.
Yeah. Yeah, big shout out over to Eureka Heights, as always, for sponsoring our podcast. So,
yes, sir.
We're enjoying a nice. I'm still drinking the Wicked Awesome.
What the fuck?
Well, when the fuck did we get ice cream?
Yeah.
So anyway, that big shout out to all, craft brewing in Houston and Texas in general is kind of,
every mom
it's a big
daddy's got one. They say.
Yeah, I mean, no,
but it's cool.
A big, it's
as long as the market's there.
I like
keep pumping them out.
The passion and how different from how they like their own style.
It's very non-competitive. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You remember that first conversation we had with Evan? He was like, when he got hired over at Eureka Heights, he was like, "I'm ready to we're gonna put these other guys down." Didn't he work at
St. Arnold's before? Is that? Or
I don't think so.
No, okay, never mind. Might be thinking of a different thing.
But one of the guys at Eureka Heights was one of the brewers at St. Arnold's.
Okay.
So he's one of the brewers. The Art Car IPA is his recipe.
Oh, okay.
So there's variation. Apparently, there's variations of that recipe that get made at Eureka Heights still.
Huh.
So anyway, so God bless all the breweries and stuff like that. I had to restock the fridge to get quarantine ready just in case they lock us in our house for 7 days.
So I got to go hit up Randy for a little more, little gas, as they say. Oh, God. Well, yeah, that's a different story. Yeah.
So let's shift to a different aspect of this coronavirus thing.
Let's.
How fucked are we?
Well, I want to talk about the people that aren't on the same page as everybody else, and like the people that are let's talk about the people that think that we're totally overblowing this, that it's some kind of conspiracy or man-made virus.
All this shit.
Oh,
I know. I don't know. I don't believe that either. I don't at all. That it's man-made.
There's people on Facebook that are like, they think it's all a hoax, that nobody even has this. There's people that are posting like, do I even know?
But
do you ask yourselves, do you know anybody that has coronavirus?
Yeah,
yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Not in this country. A buddy of mine in Ireland tested positive, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell my dad that.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go there.
Yeah. No. You mean, my dad just had some, differences on stuff like. But the problem is, like you said, Rob, a lot of people just, it's easy to jump and make it a conspiracy. Well, it seems like for anything, and it's convenient to do that. I get that, but I don't buy that. What's the gain? Like, honestly, yeah.
What?
That's a reference to my father. My dad's name's Cliff.
Cliff
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
So when you're talking about something that is like
guns, and
ultra
Corvettes
conservative American,
Gotcha.
that's ultra. That's
and amongst other things, Corvettes. I guess that's American.
Anything that's like quintessential Cliff. That's that's ultra Cliff.
But
man, people. I think it's like I don't know. It's like one of these like psychological dopamine hits that you can just you delve into that kind of stuff.
Big
you like
time.
to like run away with it, let your imagination run wild.
Yeah, I used to get off of that too when I was younger. It's like, but I can't. No, I don't. I have a different mindset.
I mean, I can't see like the world governments coming together to make this.
What is the gain? Like, honestly,
exactly. What is the gain? The stock market's crashing.
Yes, like we're all getting fucked.
Well,
how is this helping?
Then you hear about these senators who've been selling off their stocks.
Thank you.
Beforehand,
at the end of January,
fuels the fire a little bit.
Yeah, it does fuel the fire.
I didn't know that. No shit.
Yeah, so there was a couple of Republican senators that after
and a Democrat, I think, to be fair.
To be fair,
people are people. Fuck 'em,
so
man.
they were.
Jesus.
There was a classified briefing, kind of letting them know what was going on, and right after that, they sold millions of dollars of stock. Right after that. So now they're being investigated for insider trading, which is good. Fuck them. They should.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should
All
be.
Hang them high.
Yeah.
Hang 'em high.
So anyway, I mean, there's just we obviously haven't heard the end of this. I mean, this is an ongoing story. I think it's gonna be. I hate to say that's like our new normal, but I mean, it might be.
Yeah.
Because they're saying the recovery from this and the playthrough and recovery of this could take 18 months is what they were saying.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard as far as this, they're predicting like July, August to where
restrictions will start being lifted.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're talking for the course of this whole thing to run. They're talking 18 months.
Yeah.
I mean,
I heard somebody put it the other way. It's like the lump in the python, that it's going through the system, that this like big thing is just working its way through the global system, and it just has to
let it ride it out pretty much.
Ride it out, Yeah. I mean, taking the precautions that we are taking right now, which
which a lot of people say that we haven't done enough. We didn't do enough fast enough.
Well, they also said we
probably did not.
We
I mean,
weren't
you look
necessarily
at cases
prepared either for something catastrophic. Like
that's the whole thing.
Or at least the whole point.
They do these test runs and like they test they do these basically like a system flex, and they basically like run scenarios like if there was a global pandemic right now, could your medical system handle it? And I think there was one last year, and the Trump administration completely failed it. And this was after Trump laid off a bunch of he cut the funding and lost a bunch of people in that department. And
at
then,
the CDC, right?
Yeah, at the CDC.
Gutted the CDC.
Gutted the CDC.
Yeah.
And then when all the testing, I think primarily everything had to be sent back to the CDC where they were doing the confirmations and everything. And they couldn't do any local testing.
Exactly.
Whereas I think in South Korea they really ramped up like the capacity to test like immediately. They saw.
I think they got their shit controlled too.
No,
they're not. What?
Pretty quickly, but
Russia as well too. You know that, right? They closed their borders, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be in a situation like in Italy, but like where everybody's been quarantined to their house for 2 weeks. But
that's San Francisco and L.A. or state of California, isn't it?
Well, the state of California has non-essential people have to be inside for the next like 7 days or something like that. I forget what it is, but but yeah, I mean, there's stories like that all over the globe. You know what I mean? And then Trump blamed this on Obama. By the way,
naturally, yeah, of course.
This was Obama's fault, and
thanks, Obama.
And he even said that he takes no responsibility for this, which was interesting.
I don't get why you would blame him. What's the connection? I don't.
He said that it was Obama's policies that caused this red tape that caused them to not be able to react fast enough. So,
of course, got a point. Somebody's got to take the fall for it.
So
no
anyway,
what.
But it's hard. I mean, we try not to talk about politics because you get such
it's a little hard to avoid it in this kind of situation.
Exactly, it is a little hard to avoid it. But
I was honestly hoping that would be a little more united because of all this stuff. But nope,
no,
nothing's changed.
No,
it's well. Yeah. I mean, and now they're talking about an economic stimulus plan. Mitch McConnell introduced a bill wanting to send just. Like, do you remember when W was president, where they just sent out all those checks? You remember that? Where you just got like $150 or $300 in the mail, and you're just like, why'd I get $300 from the government? Is this a real check? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're talking. There was an economic stimulus plan, and now they're talking about doing that because of all the downshift in the economy. So Mitch McConnell has suggested his plan proposes $1,200 per citizen for every citizen making less than $75,000 per year, $2,400 to married couples making less than $150,000 a year filing joint, and then you get like an extra $50 per kid that you have.
But see,
and that's based on I think
you got the file
2018 tax.
Is it 2018 taxes?
2018 tax filings, yeah. Because a lot of people haven't filed their 2018. I haven't.
And they've pushed back tax filings to July.
Right. Yeah. So but also there's a sliding scale, so that number goes lower.
It's
for lower income.
Yeah, it's $100. You get $100 less for every $1,000 or something like that you make,
which is like. I think counterintuitive because like the people
I didn't hear that part. A lot of people didn't.
Over, you get less money the more money you made.
Oh, okay. Well, see, how do you?
I thought you got less money.
Is it automatically coming to you?
No, you get less money the more money. So if you made over $75,000, you get less money than somebody who made under $75,000.
So is it just going to just be sent automatically in the mail? Do you have to actually file for this?
No, I think it's based on your 2018 tax filings. And
of course, if you didn't file taxes in 2018,
I did. I'm good.
Get nothing.
I'm good.
But a lot of people don't. Like students, for example, if you graduated in 2018, you wouldn't.
I know somebody right now is going to be pissed.
Yeah. Or if you make less than like I don't know. There's a federal minimum.
What if he just did
$15,000 a year or something?
What if he made less than that, which a lot of people do
for this year though? For both of them, for 2018 and 2019,
it wouldn't matter.
I think I think what I read, they said if it's your most recent one. So if you have 2019 filed, they'll use 2019.
Oh, okay.
So I mean. We come in right underneath the like the level. We filed our income taxes already, and we had to do I had to 1099 a bunch of people this year because my little side business ventures actually made some money this year. So I was
there you go.
It was
you need to hire a better accountant. No, they did not, Rob.
Well, they've lost money too many years in a row. So it's one of those things where you got to show a little bit of in the green, or else Uncle Sam comes up knocking on the door.
As an actor, I've filed 1099s for that, and I obviously never made money as an actor. I, made money, but I count in a lot of. Expenses.
Oh, I do too. I have a lot of expenses and things that.
I look around this room and I see a lot of very expensive things.
Yeah. So that was all. Basically, when I built this studio out, I divided the equipment and the build out of the studio, and I wrote it off over 2 years. So that was 2017 and 2018. So 2019 comes around, and the sound company, when I do sound, I make money with that, and I have to pay Doug Funny, and then when my bands play, I run everything. When my band plays, they're basically hiring my sound company, and the sound company is bringing a band. So then I have to 1099 all the members of the band. So anyway,
also, I know I'm not a tax accountant, but this appears to be separate and exclusive. This area here,
it is. It is a home office. I do deduct this, but
fantastic.
I know all about that.
Cool.
Yeah, TurboTax.
Yeah. Because we did that in New York. So Chelsea, my wife, was working out of our apartment in New York, and she worked in one little corner. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but she worked in one little corner of the apartment. And we considered that her home office, and so we would take that. We added that as an expense into our, because we had to file 1099s, and we never used that area for anything but her office. I mean, and it was separate because there were barriers there, so it was separate and exclusively used for her.
Yeah, and that's
office.
And I get to do that. I get to double dip on that because I work from home.
500 square foot apartment, by the way.
This is
I can't imagine how much that costs up there. New York City?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I can tell you, $1,350 a month.
Wow. 500? Then? How long was then?
We moved in 2015.
Oh,
this room is about...
Damn, that's still expensive.
This room is about 400 square feet.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
I out of curiosity, I looked to see how much it would cost to buy that apartment, and it was like $350,000. Something.
You can actually buy apartments over there. That's
you buy the apartment, which I don't understand because you don't own anything really. You own a little box inside a much larger building.
Yeah, the
next to thousands of other people.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, and you still have to pay utilities and stuff to the landlord of
and
the
everything.
building.
So no, it doesn't make. Well, it makes sense because then you can turn around and sell it for higher later.
Well, if you could buy it and then you could lease it out. If you owned it, you could lease it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Damn, how long would it take
but
to
a lot
have
of times
money
the
back?
buildings. Well, I don't want to get too deep in this, but the buildings are owned by somebody or some like LLC somewhere.
I was gonna say sidetrack. Like you say you're an actor. Like, you consider yourself a method actor? Like, what kind of? I'm sort of into myself. That's why I haven't really done shit, but I'm just curious.
I don't know. Every actor's got a method.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody's different.
So,
whatever works for them.
Whatnot. I think the idea of method acting is something that gets like distorted and bastardized. People see Daniel Day-Lewis walk around with a limp for 6 months, and they're like, "Oh, that's method acting." Like, well, it works for him, and he gets great results, obviously.
Yeah.
But like the method is not. It's like something that was developed in Russia during the early 19th. Stanislavski.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah,
and
I can't pronounce his. Yeah,
and then taken into the group theater by the group of Americans. So that would be like Lee Strasberg. And,
right.
I can't think of them off the top of my head, but like that. And so that's like the whole method of creating a reality in your mind for the situation. I don't necessarily. I used to kind of. I mean, I studied into that stuff and thought it was interesting when I was first acting.
Yeah,
but I don't know. No, I just try to create as much reality as I can for that situation, for that specific moment. And I hate to say like in the moment.
Yeah, but that's what it is.
Fucking phrase that people use. But
no, but I completely understand what you mean. Like, cause it seems like sometimes when I do takes and because some friends in the past we record skits and stuff like that. It feels like for me to be more. I don't know if it's necessarily method, but the way I would do it, like I'd feel more comfortable if you just let me kind of do my thing. Like we run it, run the camera, just hit record and kind of let me get a little comfortable, and I kind of just eventually, I guess maybe after so many takes and just keep it going, then I'll feel natural enough to where I can get it, and then I figured those are the best times for me to capture, or I guess good takes for me if I was to do it. Yeah,
so it is hard. It is hard to like flick a switch, like action go. You kind of have to be. In a semi-state of whatever the situation is. If like having a fight with your girlfriend over, breakfast table.
Yeah.
You need to be like
feeling
in that
vibe. Yeah,
side of thing. Like, but like, so I studied at the Barrow Group in New York, and it's a very good school. Just to plug it real quick. And one of the things, like the key thing there is, they start off with it's a conversation exercise.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a scene, or if you're struggling with any kind of scene, connecting with the material with your fellow actor. You just have a conversation, literally about anything, like what we're doing now. And you just kind of you notice your mannerisms, you notice your inflection in your voice and stuff, and then if you start the scene, you just start the scene from the conversation. So you just flow into you go from your natural, and you build up that resource of like me. You use yourself. You know, they always say like an actor's instrument is themselves.
Correct.
So you tune your instrument, and you just go and just use what you have. Inside you already. I don't know. It's
is that difficult to do if you're playing a character? Like if you're playing a character that's outside of like what your normal mannerisms would be?
Yeah. So, because it doesn't always have to be like you don't have to have some kind of wild. I mean,
but what I'm saying is like, you know, if you have like a Joaquin Phoenix, you know, like on the Joker trying to do, you know what I mean? Like,
that's developed over. So that's something that we talked about. Is that when you develop that over time, you can add one thing at a time, basically, into a character. Whether it's like a limp, something physical, it's like a physical change, because things you do physically will affect how you respond emotionally. So at least, you know, typically, so you can add in a small physical change. So it could be like, you know, a lisp or something like that. Or you know, something physical can be your voice. Something physical can be what you do with your body. Something physical can be like, I don't know, anything like that. But you don't just throw it in. You don't just all of a sudden be the Joker, you know. you build into that over time. And, you know, then...
Right.
Because especially a guy like Joaquin Phoenix is going to be given the time and the...
Yeah.
You know.
I was going to say, like, you're going back to, like... you're talking about, like, when we do a scene, like, prior, you just have a conversation and, you know, and eventually you go from there, you do the scene. Is that, like, a common practice, like most actors like to do? Or just,
no,
or
that's something specific to the Barrow Group. Okay. That it's, like, it's something that was developed by the guy there.
Oh, okay. Interesting. No, I like that.
Forgetting
that's
kind of... Right,
yeah, that's kind of like if I was to do, like, it just depends. Like it seems like I can't, like you said earlier. Like I've seen people that can just like a switch.
Some people can.
They can.
You know, some people can. I can't. So that's more power to them, man.
Yeah, that's their style. Like I'm a writer, songwriter. My how I write songs and how I do it. Yeah, I met plenty of other people's like. That's weird. I don't do it that way. Some, you know, I'd like it, but a lot is like, nah, I don't do it that way. And it's just the same thing for acting. The way I figure is just whatever works for you best. You just got to figure out.
Yeah, and I will say, so acting for film and acting on stage are different. I mean, or the preparation is different.
Yeah.
I don't look at it as different.
Me, yeah.
But the preparation is definitely very different. So if you're acting on a set, time is of the essence. You don't have the time. Now, maybe Joaquin Phoenix does, but I don't.
Yeah.
You know, day player Norman Dillon coming onto your scene, onto your set, director's not going to give me time to get into the right headspace or whatever. I need to find practical ways that I can do that at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Not at the drop of a hat, but like, you know, because you do have time for rehearsals and for, you know, when they're setting up lights and stuff. You can. There are downtime, there are moments where you can build yourself into a scene.
Yeah.
But when he says action and then those cameras are rolling, you got to be able to produce.
Right.
And you got to be able to do it over and over again from different angles, from different whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, is the preparation time needs to be condensed. Because in a play, you're in rehearsals and developing that character and that play over months. You know, a typical rehearsal schedule is going to be like 6 weeks, 8 weeks long, you know. And then even, you know, more professional theaters, they'll have preview nights, and so you have a lot of time to develop that performance, and so you can sit with that character for a long time and really build it out. For a movie, especially if you're just there, you know, obviously
scheduled times for scenes, I guess, and stuff like that. I mean, it seems like you're on a schedule, like you said. And
yeah.
You only have so much time.
Everybody's, the clock is ticking, and you know, time is money.
Yeah,
so everybody's getting paid.
There's scheduling and all that shit. And you got to schedule with a shitload of people, make sure that they can come in on the same time.
You should have never mentioned you were a fucking actor.
Oh, no.
It's interesting. Like, I mean, I've always wanted to do it myself, and I think, I don't know, just we'll go back to whatever, but just one last thing. I don't know, just me personally. I definitely do have a lot of ideas for a lot of skits. Me and my buddy have been trying to write this TV show for a long time, and and there's like a vision I want to do, and I want to write the soundtrack for it too. And I don't know, like I
don't know. Don't spread yourself too thin. It's a lot. Writing and then being in it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But see, I'm trying to go for like a simple concept though, man. Like I've seen it be done. It can be done.
Yeah,
nothing over the top. Like I love minimalism, and I love to. I apply that in my music, and I love to do the same thing in my writing, and I guess in acting for whatever we got. So, but I don't know. I figured like. Because I've always wanted to go to L.A. years ago. Like the way it is now, like I don't know. I don't want to do it. And being that how it is now with the technology, and we have YouTube, but so many things you can do. You can promote yourself. You don't necessarily need to go. Of course, it's going to take time and effort, but I'm willing to do that so I can have creative 100% creative control, at least on my own. And I just told him, like, we could just do it on YouTube and just put it like as this series, little episodes. And
absolutely,
and I've seen plenty of people do it. It can be done. You just got to dedicate yourself, and I'm willing to do that. I just need to get the equipment, or
absolutely
Jacob's got the
something
equipment.
to be said for creating just for the sake of creating.
Yeah,
like you're doing
right.
It's art. We'll call it art for the sake of the art. You're not looking to make it.
Yes, exactly.
The big old quotation marks or whatever. You're just looking to express yourself. Do what you.
I've always. I'm like, we have like this world we want to bring in, and I would love the people.
Hopefully
to get
people
involved.
see it, but if they don't,
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean it is what it is. Like
it's the same reason we do this podcast. If
exactly.
people get
Who's
involved,
listening?
great.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just literally just need to shit it out, man. Like it's been in me all. I just need to get so I can have that relief and know that or at least I did it. And I'll be happy with it. Wherever it goes, it goes. If it doesn't make it, that's fine with me too. Maybe I can make somebody laugh across the world, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I look at it. So hopefully we'll do it.
I'll relate it back to a previous topic. The coronavirus.
How do we forget that? How the fuck did I forget that?
Or as it's referred to on Reddit and right now.
Boomer removal?
I gave up Reddit for Lent, so I don't
it
know.
is right now it's it's just being
very
called
brave.
It's being called the Rona.
The Rona.
The Rona.
I did see.
You got the Rona?
Yeah.
But they're also calling it boomer removal.
Yeah, the boomer remover.
So I did see this. A buddy of mine, she lives in Australia.
That's so funny.
And she was making fun of I saw this memes that she shared. It was like making fun of Australian slang because obviously the Rona.
Oh yeah.
In ISO.
I saw that.
Did you see it?
Yeah, the new Australian
slang for it. I can't remember what all it was.
Kung flu.
No.
It was
It's
specifically Australian slang.
Yeah, it was so Australian. I need to be an ISO because I got the Rona.
Rona.
What's funny is the response to it was like, this sounds totally normal. Like, this doesn't sound like new anything.
Do people not just say that already? Like, I got bloody magpie at the store.
Oh, yeah, that was like... magpie.
Nice. That was
good.
good.
Fucking dunnies in it. Fucking at the servo. The bloody magpie.
We called them Chazwazes.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get on to the topic.
Oh, sorry,
of
I didn't
tonight.
finish my reference.
Yeah,
I want to tie that loop up. So all the prevention measures, you throw everything out there. You don't know what works or what didn't or what is it. What did you mentioned something earlier where it's like, you don't know if you stopped this, but you do know that you do everything you can not.
Yeah.
So
you're never going to know if we did too much, but we'll definitely know if we did too little.
Exactly. So I'll apply that back to what you said. You'll never know. You'll know that you didn't do it, and if you do it and you do it to the best you can, to the best of your ability, maybe nobody watches it, maybe nothing comes from it,
right?
But you'll know that you did enough for yourself, and you know that you didn't do too little.
And
so
that is
just to tie that loop back together.
Well, no,
nice.
It's just so satisfying to do that. Like, because I mean, I'm doing a lot of things. I'm working on an album I never released. I've been writing music 20 years. I want to do it this summer, hopefully, and that's a big deal for me. And doing what I told you about that show, and just the shit I can do on my own, and just to do it is just the satisfaction is just
do it.
It's just awesome. Yeah. So
the reason that we brought Norm in, and this is one of the we're constantly looking for content. So one of the things, like we said earlier, Norm plays for the Houston Arrows. And I had the pleasure of checking out my first professional rugby game, and that's kind of where this all came from, because Houston now has a Major League Rugby. Is that what they call it?
Major
Major
League
League Rugby.
Silly name, but
the Houston SaberCats. I caught a game.
Sexy? SaberCats, sexy? I don't know.
So it's Norm plays rugby. So just to give you some background,
I did before they shut everything down.
They got you too, huh?
So yeah, now I get to come here and talk about rugby because I can't.
Well,
play
rugby you can't play. So
wait, is it like was there like a season going on right now? Or
we were in the middle of the season. We have 2 games left.
Yeah,
so damn, what a tease, huh?
I know.
Yeah,
damn.
It's just to give her a little bit of background. I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but my wife's family is very international. Her dad. Was born. Where was Ron born? Ron was born
on the South Island of New Zealand.
Yeah, and your mom,
or
his
North
sister,
Island.
was born in Australia.
No, Mom was born in Greymouth, New Zealand.
Okay,
Greymouth, New Zealand.
And then their brother Rob one of them was born in Wales, wasn't he?
No, Uncle Rob was born in Holland because my grandmother did not trust the medical system of the sheep shaggers in New Zealand. My apologies to all our New Zealand listeners. Get over it, bro.
Uncle.
Get over it, bro. Go have some fish and chips, bro.
So, yeah. So it's one of the great pleasures of being in this family. Is experience all the cool international culture and stuff. Especially since my aunt and uncle moved to Australia and then they moved to New Zealand. So it's really interesting to have that kind of opposite sides of the family tied to the same kind of places.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's pretty interesting, in such a huge world that like something like that would come about. And then your brother moved to Australia for a little while and was going to college down there.
He was working. He was
working. That's right.
He was doing casual work.
But he was in college in Cardiff in Wales for a little while.
Yes.
And then moved down to Australia to work. So you hold dual citizenships because your mom holds dual citizenships. Is that right?
No. So Ben, the one who went to Sydney for a year, he does have citizenship. But none of us. We're all eligible for it, and my mom is still just an Australian citizen. So
okay.
She wants to get her citizenship because she sees the sort of changing political climate in the country and wants to be able to vote. So she can't.
Wow.
Yeah, she can't. And also to do with
it's pretty progressive down there.
Depends on who you talk to. Yeah. Depends on who you talk to. Just like here, it's like it's wildly different in the cities than it is in the rural, communities. They call them bogans.
Bogans, eh?
So, this is kind of where we got. One of the interesting things that's coming up is because rugby as a sport is kind of gaining ground as people are shifting away from football.
Really?
And I read a statistic the other day, and I was trying to find it earlier, and I don't know where I read it, but there was a poll done, and this guy wrote this whole thing about the resurgence, not the resurgence, but this surge of interest in rugby as a sport into America and why it was happening. And basically it was like as the NFL becomes more and more tame and, the games take longer and the action slowed down and things like that, people are getting tired, as the new generation of kids is coming up, they're not interested in that as much and they want to get more involved in different international sports like rugby, lacrosse,
cricket,
highlight. I don't know about cricket. But,
I don't know about that. They're worried about things being slow. I don't think
cricket's a pretty slow game.
50 overs of cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is baseball. Yeah.
No, we've talked about this. I love
it's
baseball.
Slow for me.
Well,
it's too goddamn slow.
Let's. Norm,
this is not for me.
I'm going to get us some fresh beers. Maybe you can give us kind of a brief back history of the game of rugby.
Ooh.
And kind of a basic overview of the rules and kind of or maybe not the rules, but like kind of how the gameplay flows.
Yeah. Okay. Game of rugby. So it all started in 1823 when a young lad named William Webb Ellis was out playing some footy with his friends at the rugby school in England, and he decided, this is fucking stupid. Why don't we just pick the ball up and run? Like,
Nice.
so, and then,
This is fucking
and then
stupid.
people who, tried to take the ball off of him, he's like, no, fuck that. So he would, stiff arm him in the chest and then kick him while they're down. And then,
This is you doing that.
what?
No.
No,
This is the original.
This is the story. This is the story.
Okay,
So a guy
okay,
named
okay.
William Webb Ellis.
I was pretending it was you.
Is a guy who invented
visual.
rugby at the rugby school. So,
I see.
which isn't entirely true, or like it's sort of like one of those legends. Even today, like the Rugby World Cup is named after. It's called the Webb Ellis Cup. But he did start in rugby at the rugby school in England. But at the time, every single school, these are all like the posh boarding schools in England, the public schools as they call them. They were all developing ball games, and they were calling them football or some version of that. So this is rugby football. There would have been an Eton football, or there would have been another kind of football play.
Oh, okay.
So it was all being like, and it was just a bunch of guys getting together, and at this time I think like just athletics was really being in that. This is an early like mid 1820s in England, so like that spirit of like manlyhood and athletic pursuit and intellectualism and all that kind of stuff was like it was to be the best man you could,
Right.
And so this was being fostered in the posh schools in England, and so they were developing these ball games. Which, I mean, whatever. There's a long history of people playing ball games. There's like different towns would carry this sheep's bladder over here, and they would basically murder each other. But so they decided
Sheep's bladder, you say?
Yeah.
sheep's bladder, specifically sheep. No. So while these games were being developed all over the country in England at these different schools, they basically said that we need to come together and we need to establish some kind of formality to this and
Like
some
a
rules.
standardization across the
Standardize
board.
the rules and come up with a set of laws we can all agree on. And there was a camp that said, no, we're not going to carry the ball. I don't think that should be part of the game. And there was a camp that said, yes, we absolutely are going to carry the ball, and we're going to keep the more violent aspects of the game because they enjoyed that part. So the camp that said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to carry the ball. We're not going to hit each other and stomp at each other. Like that's, we're gentlemen. And the camp that said, no, we are going to do that. They formed rugby football, and the other one formed association football, or what we know as soccer. The lame one. So soccer comes from association. It's like one of those like little English.
Oh, okay.
But they actually did call it
nicknames.
soccer over there? Or is it just saying
Yeah.
like that's okay?
Yeah, no, it's called soccer.
Okay.
Well, association football.
Okay.
And then rugby was rugby football, or rugger. They would call it rugger because this is, it's like, think of like, olden Victorian England
yeah.
fellas. Like, let's go play a game of rugger, shall we? Perhaps some soccer. No, that's for the lads down the street. We play rugger. Anyway, so that's
Nice.
so that was, and that is the beginning of rugby football in England at the time, and it was in these schools, these fancy schools, and they would go on tours down to South Africa, and that was like, it was a touring rich man. You go on grand tours, the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you would go and you go on a tour, a rugby tour to a place, and
So it would be the same couple of teams going and playing each other on tour.
yeah. So clubs would go on tour, or they
Wouldn't play the local clubs that they toured to.
It depends. Yes and no. They would. So they would have. So the reason there are striped jerseys in rugby, like the traditional striped jersey, is like the standard white jersey was the England jersey, and then each club had its stripes. It had its different colored stripes, and the clubs hadn't been developed at this point because they were still being played mainly in the schools. But so they would get these group of gentlemen together, and so basically it's the guys who could afford to get together and form these clubs and go on these tours, and either as an English national team, which they did, or as their clubs, or whatever. So it was a very much an upper class sport, but
Very brutal.
yeah. It was one of those like, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, or I know I've heard it a million times, that rugby is a ruffian sport played by
Hooligans?
a ruffian sport played by gentlemen, and soccer is a gentleman sport played by ruffians. because it was like seen as a more lower class thing. Whereas
so
rugby,
the importance of class, like you're saying earlier,
class distinction. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's always been a thing, especially coming from like Victorian England.
Okay,
like,
but
that was always a big thing.
But
Yeah.
now, fast forward today, is it still had that kind of stick, or I mean, like, is it like that, or
Yes, and it
or
depends.
does it kind of balances out? Seems like it's
Well,
more.
you kind of have. So I think that I assume what you're gonna say is like soccer is or football. I mean, you can get a ball and anybody can kick a ball, and it's the most watched and participated sport in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A rugby ball is a little bit more difficult to come across. So, in that aspect, like you would have to have the money to buy a rugby ball.
Yes
Okay,
and no.
so-
Yes and no.
okay.
So, yes. So there are the class divides.
That's my American assumption.
in
By
certain-
the way, that was it.
So you can
spot on.
You can have a rugby ball, like guys, the kids in Brazil playing, kicking around coconuts on the beach. There are also poor kids in Fiji who are passing around coconuts, whatever they have available to them, and they're playing rugby. So it's not
damn.
all you need is something to hold and kick, and a place to do it, just an open ground to do it. So you don't need a hoop, you don't need any kind of equipment, you don't need ice, for example, in hockey. But so it is. I think it is still an everyman sport, or it can be, but there are still those class divides in, say, like Australia, where it is seen as much of it's more of an upper class sport, whereas the sport of the people is rugby league. So that's a different code. It was developed in the north of England and all the factory towns, whereas it was played on Saturdays, and they got together, and it's like a much more brutal version of rugby is rugby league, and kind of has that reputation.
Okay, so rugby league is when we think like Vinnie Jones from what's it called? Am I get this right? From what's that one movie?
I think they were Manchester United.
Well,
that's soccer, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm talking.
Wait, never mind. I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking.
Well, Richard Harris
like
played a rugby league player in The Sporting Life. Great movie.
That was like 1960.
No, I was thinking
No.
of something else. I got him confused with somebody else.
Since rugby league came up in these more blue collar industrial towns in the north of England, it is seen as the more blue collar everyman's sport, and it's again more violent, more brutal. Like you could, like the laws around tackling and stuff like that have always been more lenient in rugby league than in rugby union, and the biggest distinction was professionalism. So forever, rugby union was strictly amateur. Nobody got paid to do it. They did it for the love of the game and for these great tours. We went down to South Africa. Do you remember that tour that we went to South Africa, boys? Whereas the rugby league guys, when they found out and they got crowds coming around and people would pay money to watch them play, and they were, hard scrabble dudes from the north of England, they're like, we can get paid to do this.
I'm trying to get like
pay me.
I'm trying to get like another analogy here for it. Okay, you say rugby union. You say rugby league. That's the one that's violent, right?
More violent.
More violent. Okay, I'm trying to think it like
it has a reputation.
Okay,
It has a reputation.
okay. Well, I'm trying to think it's like the ECW of wrestling or something, where it's kind of
basically
crude. Like I don't. You familiar with the wrestling federations? Or at least, or you know what ECW was? Or I don't think they're around anymore.
No, they got bought out.
They were kind of lower
It's funny
class, like
that you say
real
that.
violent, like type wrestling back in the day.
I was watching the documentary Beyond the Mat earlier today.
I saw that in theaters.
Anyway, so
20 years ago.
Your analogy is kind of spot on. Like WWF, you're talking about mid to late 90s wrestling. So basically, kind of, but the WWF was more. They made way more money.
Yeah,
but basically, what
Smaller
I think
circuit,
that
they were.
a better analogy would be,
I don't know. I can't think of one.
it would be like people. Man, I don't know.
Okay, but
It's
There's not,
tough.
because the thing is, they're so similar. Like they're both rugby. They're both codes of rugby. They're just small but significant differences, like the number of players. There's something called a scrum, which looks very different in rugby union than it does in rugby league.
Yeah,
and it's
like rugby league. You said it was it was like a bunch of like blue collar workers and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I that the whole ruffians and gentlemen thing.
Yeah.
Like if rugby union is a ruffian sport played by gentlemen, and soccer is a gentleman sport played by ruffians, rugby league is a ruffian sport played by ruffians. they're
nice
to fuck each other up.
Yeah, that's a figure. Just I mean,
it's not a gentleman's pursuit at all.
Yeah, like
it's,
they can get violent pretty much.
Yeah, so in Australia they have a game called the State of Origin. It's a series of games between so the biggest states in Australia are Queensland and New South Wales. There's a huge rivalry between the two in all sports, but rugby league in particular. So there's State of Origin means wherever you played your first professional game of rugby league, that's your state of origin. So you now will represent New South Wales if you played for a team in New South Wales, like the Parramatta Eels, or if you come from Queensland, or you play for the Gold Coast Broncos or whatever. So they have this three game series they play every year, and this is the most brutal, like bad blood feud in all of sport. Like I'm talking like Yankees versus Red Sox times 1,000.
And that's what I've noticed is like with rugby teams.
That's bad.
With rugby teams, it's like you talk about like rivalries and shit like that, like Houston, like the Texans versus the Cowboys, and shit like that. It's like you think like soccer players are bad with their rivalries and shit like that. Like you think like the guys like Manchester United fans, like you think they're bad. Like when it comes to stuff like, man, people love their fucking rugby teams and they will fucking give or take a bullet for it.
Players too. So in rugby league, like I said, it's a different socioeconomic class that plays rugby league. Now that's painting a hugely broad stroke, and I don't want to offend my rugby league fans out there, but that's kind of the reputation. So a lot of the players have some criminal history. A lot of the players have substance abuse problems. A lot of the players have maybe domestic violence, and stuff. So these are violent guys. And in the State of Origin games, there's always fights. Always fights. In rugby union games, nobody ever throws a punch. Unless you're French and you're stupid, and they do it. French, because they do it all the time. The French are idiots.
French.
French rugby players are idiots. But anyway, so but anyway,
one of my favorite rugby teams by default, the only team that I was ever had any association with before I ever saw a full rugby match was a rugby league team, was the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
South Sydney Rabbitohs,
So,
it's Russell Crowe's team.
Rabbitohs.
Like Russell Crowe.
And South Sydney.
Yeah, because that's so my aunt and uncle were they lived in Coogee, which is near South Sydney, and that was like their team. So I've seen a couple like bits and pieces of matches, and they post stuff. So that was my introduction into rugby was the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Yeah,
wasn't there
is the New Zealand All Blacks? Are they union or are they
union? Okay, so all the big national teams you'll think of, like, because rugby league internationally is still not nearly as popular as rugby union is.
Okay.
They have a World Cup. And America is actually surprisingly competitive in that World Cup, mainly because there's a lot of Aussies that play on that team. And Australia just is so dominant in rugby league, it's not even funny. So
well, it's a continent full of criminals, so
exactly.
So all right,
the All Blacks are union.
So. Okay, so that's the divide then: league and union play.
And union. And then of course there's sevens, not to confuse everybody, but
let's not confuse everybody. So let's walk through a game. You know what? Before we get into walking through like kind of the rules and stuff of the game, I have a very generalized question that bugs me this is a very ignorant American question. And I don't know that there's an answer for it. You're obviously wearing a jersey.
Yes.
And what team jersey is that?
This is Leinster, which is the Irish provincial team that I would support. So I lived in Ireland for roughly 2 years, and I lived in Dublin, and Dublin is in the province of Leinster. So
this is my uniquely American ignorant question for everybody who's wondering it.
I bet it's beautiful. But
because look at his jersey. Tell me what team that. I would assume that he played for Bank of Ireland.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, rugby jerseys don't plaster the team logo or name or even the player name on them typically.
Yeah, almost never will you see the player's name on the back of a jersey. Almost never. Some English clubs do. Like I've seen that before, but
one of the
almost never.
And one of the things that I found really interesting when we were at that SaberCats game was your jersey number is correlated to the position that you play.
Yes.
Rather than like where like you wouldn't just have like a randomly assigned number. In football, it's kind of the same.
I'm Gilbert Arenas, so I'm going to be 00.
Yeah.
It's 69.
Well, so in football, you know, like linemen have the higher, you know, higher 60s and 70s
they do have
numbers.
ranges of numbers. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's a purpose for the numbers. I didn't know that.
So the purpose of the number is to is your exact position on the field, or is it a range still also?
Well, yes and no. So yes, it is your exact position, but some positions are more fluid than others and have like crossover responsibilities. So I will say that like rugby in football, American football has very, very defined roles. Each player has a job to do, and he does that job to the best of his ability. Whereas in rugby, each player is called upon to run the ball, catch the ball, make tackles. You play both offense and defense. So it's like you have a general skill set across the team that everybody needs to have. So that being said, there are some specific positions. So I'll go through them from 1 to 15. So number 1 is your loose head prop. He's on the left-hand side of the scrum. So this is all basically based around like kind of the formation you would be in a set piece. A set piece would be like line out or scrum. So in this case, all the position names are in reference, like reference to the scrum, essentially. Like,
and a scrum, just so if people aren't familiar, scrum is basically what you see. A lot of people who have seen rugby, you see basically both teams with their arms around each other on either side of a big huddle.
Yeah.
That's what
pushing
that is?
against each other. Yeah. That is a scrum.
Right. Yeah. People misuse the word scrum, like you hear it in other sports, like in basketball. If there's a loose ball and everybody's diving on the ball,
but it's
a scrum.
not. But a scrum in rugby is not chaos.
No, it's very controlled.
Yeah, it's very controlled.
Yeah.
So when they're doing that, it's just.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
So I'll go through the positions, and so I'll say that the first 8 guys are the guys that form the scrum.
Okay.
So the first 3, they are the front row of the scrum. So you have your loose head prop, loose head meaning his head is loose on the outside. You have your hooker, so named, and everybody likes to make the jokes about the hooker, so I'm not going to do it. It's because he hooks the ball back with his foot. So when the ball comes in, and I'll get to that later, but he hooks it back with his foot. And then you have number 3 is the tight head prop. So named because his head is inside. It's tight inside. So you have prop, hooker, prop. And so that's the front row. Now, a lot of players can play all those positions. They can interchange. Guys can go from 1 to 3. You know, hookers are a little bit more specialized, but like typically speaking, especially on a club team, I mean, in the more professional levels, like these guys, tight head prop is the only position you'll play, like always. But you know, in the lower grades, front row forwards will, and these are the forwards. These are the 8 forwards. Front row forwards can kind of, you know, they can go back and forth.
Bounce between the 3.
Exactly. And it's a similar skill set, you know?
Okay.
It's about where do you put your head and how you drive and how you bind onto the other player. But I don't know what the fuck they do because I'm a back. So, I'll get to that in a second.
Damn.
Yeah, so then 4 and 5 are your locks. So locks are second row. So that's your second row.
Yeah.
4 and 5. And there might be a difference between like specific role between 4 and 5, but from what I understand, they're just big, tall bastards. My buddy Guy, he's 6'5", 220 pounds.
Jesus.
He's a big motherfucker,
and he's he's a big dude, and that's your locks. That's your basically like your powerhouse. That's your the ones that are providing a lot of the strength and the power going forward into a scrum. Then you have your back row, which is 6 is your blind side flanker, who always is on the flank. So you have 2 flankers that are on the flank. Your 6 is on the blind side. So just like in American football, where you have a blind side, it's the shorter side of the field.
Right.
Then you have an open side. That's your number 7. And again, players can swap back and forth between those positions. That happens all the time.
Depending on which side of the field
depending on which side of the field you're on. So the strong side or the weak side, essentially. Right. Like blind side, open side. And then 8 is at the back of the scrum. He's the 8th man. So named because he is the 8th man. That's why, yeah. So it's just the number 8, and the number 8 is at the back of the scrum. He's sort of like the point man at the back. When it comes to him...
And that's his jersey number 8. Right?
Jersey number is 8, yeah. So he wears 8. He's literally called a number 8.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other name for that position.
8.
It's number 8. And then, so your number 9 is your scrum half. That's usually like the most annoying, loudmouth, tiny little Napoleonic complex motherfucker you have on your team.
Yeah.
Is your scrum half. And then you have 10, which is your stereotypical prima donna, doing his hair all the time, looks in the mirror and thinks highly of himself.
Yeah.
Number 10. And the 9 and the 10 are in combination what I would say the equivalent of a quarterback. Because like they're the ones that are the decision makers. They're the ones that are going to touch the ball. The scrum half will touch the ball pretty much every single phase, and I'll get into that in a second. But like the scrum half is the one that rolls the ball into the scrum and then picks it up once it comes out the back at number 8's feet.
Yeah.
So the scrum half is the one that's really driving play. He's the one that's generating everything and touches the ball every single play. And the fly half is kind of directing traffic. He can, or it depends, you know. It depends on certain teams will have the fly half make all the decisions. Some teams will have scrum half make all the decisions. Just depends on who you got, personnel wise. And then you have your centers, 12 and 13. That's my world. I go from 12 to 13, although I typically play 12. And these are more like your running backs. Although in modern rugby, you know, 12s can either be a big, strong, downhill, like a fullback. You know, he's a guy you give it, you just want to get 1-2 yards. You just want to smash, soften the defense. Smash.
Like a Jerome Bettis.
Yeah. I mean, your typical, like, solidly built, quick, good on his feet, but, like, he's not going to be stepping anybody. He's running over people. 12. Or you have, like, a playmaking 12, which is, like, a second fly half. And in New Zealand, they got crazy names for these positions. They got first 5/8 or second 5/8. Like,
second 5/8.
So these are weird. So anyway, so you have your 10. Yeah, and again, you can refer to all these positions by their jersey number. So like, who's playing 10? Who's playing 12? You know, these are the positions.
Nice.
So then you have your wings. So that's 11 and 14. 11 is on the left side. 14 is on the right side. And these are more like your wide receivers. So you can have like there's a lot of wings that are kind of like a slot receiver, kind of like who's a guy for the Patriots who's like the really fast, steppy guy who...
See, this is why we need Jake. We're not the sports guys. Jake is the sports guy.
Well, he's like...
you sound like
you're talking about Wes
Welker.
Okay.
Smaller guy, but real like fast.
Yeah. I would never guess that.
He doesn't have like breakout speed. He's not going to just run down the line and like beat everybody down the side of the field. He's a guy...
But he'll get out in front of the play.
Right, exactly. So he's probably agile. He's a steppy little slot receiver. And so you can have wingers that are like that. Or you can have the Randy Moss type of wide receiver just go.
That's just going to fake everybody out.
Yeah, just go down. And you throw it up in the air and you know he's going to catch it. And that's like some wingers are like that. I would say the biggest, the strongest equivalent I can think of, he doesn't play anymore because he was banned from the game, but a guy named Israel Folau. It's a guy that's like, so you can do what's called a crossfield kick in rugby. It's just, since you can't pass forward, that's the biggest difference between rugby and football, is no forward pass.
Yeah, you can only pass backwards.
Yeah. It's all laterals and stuff. Maybe we should have started with that, but whatever. So you can do a crossfield, you can kick it forward, so it's like a kick pass. You kick to pass. So it'd be like, if you kick to Israel Folau, you know that fucker's catching this ball and scoring. Like, you just know it. I don't mean to rob. I'm just trying to get it. Like, I can't remember if you actually explained it, but just a simple grasp for me, because like I don't know shit about sports for the most part, and let alone rugby. But so basically the general idea, just simply the score. Okay, you can kick, you can also catch, right? Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
So
I'll get to that real quick. I just need to finish off the positions real quick. So I'm missing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So and then your 15 is your fullback. Just that's that. So he's the last guy in defense, and on offense, you can use a fullback in a variety of different ways. I'm not going to get into it, but like he's more like a free safety kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. On
So
defense.
it's 15 on 15.
15 on 15.
So
Okay.
the basic goal of rugby is to, it's not, so in American football, the ball just has to break the plane of the goal line, right?
Yeah.
So there's an invisible 3D plane that goes straight up from the goal line, and the ball just has to break through that invisible wall, and that's a score. That's a touchdown,
Okay.
right? With rugby, you have to physically touch the ball down in the scoring zone.
Yeah.
Oh. How big is the scoring zone?
It's about the same size as an end zone, isn't it?
About the same size. There's a range of acceptable dimensions.
So you actually have to, you're, not your body, but the ball itself
you
has
have
to hit like the ground. Okay,
correct.
Gotcha.
So so you have to. The law states that you have to put downward pressure on the ball. Downward pressure meaning like so.
So you can't just go.
You can't just drop it.
You can't just.
You can't. So if somebody kicks it into well, I'll call it the end zone just for the sake of nomenclature. Yeah. So if somebody kicks it into the end zone, the ball's on the ground. Excuse me. You can just like slap the top of the ball. You can just go boom, and that's you've now scored it because you've put downward pressure on the ball.
Okay.
In goal.
So like because when you said pressure, it's like how hard like.
Literal any amount of pressure.
I think it just has to be
1
deliberate.
pound of pressure.
Yeah, it just has to be a deliberate
pound of pressure. I have seen tries get scored. It's called a try or a touchdown. Get scored when it's literally like a guy's pinky grazing the top of the ball. As long as there's any downward pressure from your body on the ball,
deliberate
exactly.
Yeah.
And now well.
That seems like it's like kind of confusing.
Oh, it doesn't have to be deliberate.
Well, yeah, well, it does. But I'm saying, like, I was going to say, like, do you have to have control of the ball? Some controversial calls have been made in the past. Like I said, like, because there is what's called a knock-on in rugby football. If you drop the ball forward, it is a knock-on, which would then result in a scrum to restart play. So it is illegal to move the ball forward without carrying it or kicking it. So if you drop it forward, that is illegal. That is an infraction. So if you're reaching out to score because somebody's tackling you and you're trying to extend out just to dot the ball down the line, and the ball comes out of your hand ever so slightly, but you're still able to sort of graze your fingertips on it, but it looks for everybody watching that it's a fucking knock-on, that you definitely dropped that ball, but you're able to put downward pressure on it. Now, so they have what's called a television match official. That's like a video review, and so they look over it and over it and over it. Did he have control? Like, you don't literally have to have control. You could just put. Did the ball leave his hands? No, but was he definitely losing that ball? Did he definitely drop it? Yes. So then it comes into controversial decisions, and I've seen plenty of those, but.
Okay, so one of the things that I took away from, and I'm going to refer all back to this SaberCats match. And the thing is about that SaberCats match,
horrible first game of rugby to watch.
Apparently this was like the worst first game. It was very slow, and that's
awful.
They had to restart play.
What was this?
Wait. So.
Something
and it was a nice night too. There was like it was no great. Fucking reason for that. It was just
you went wrong.
Yeah, so I was subbing in.
I was
subbing in. I was playing bass with a friend of mine's band, and they were playing at the SaberCats game, and it was Norm's mom's birthday.
Yeah.
So it was. Melissa was like, "Hey, we should all get together, go watch Rob's band play. It's a SaberCats game." Tickets were decently priced. I mean, so we were like, yeah, I mean, it's Houston's new professional rugby team. Like,
where is it held at?
They have their own stadium.
The Aviva Stadium.
Aviva Stadium. It's on 288 South, inside the belt, right inside the Beltway.
Okay.
It's not in a great part of town. It's a nice little stadium.
Yeah, whatever. I think it's a nice stadium. It is like location wise, not like super convenient.
No, it's not. But
I hate that area. But yeah.
It was.
Stadium's nice though. I gotta tell you, stadium's nice.
Stadium was.
But that's the only thing nice around it.
Well,
yeah. I mean,
it's one of the only things the SaberCats have done right is build that damn stadium.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I mean that was my first foray into rugby. So. my Melissa was like, hey, like we should just bring the family out there. It'll be fun. And it was fun.
It was.
I got to learn.
Good crack, as the Irish would say.
Yeah. So,
Irish should say that, huh?
And, Norm's younger brother got hammered. And like, he just got plastered, and then all of a sudden started speaking Australian.
Yeah, that's
like just okay. Ben's drunk and he's got an Australian accent.
Spends
today.
a year in Australia, and now all of a sudden,
it was pretty funny.
Nice. That'd be fun to hang out with. Maybe young.
He's a lot of fun.
Fun to hang out with.
He's a lot of fun. Period. But like after a couple of drinks, he's really a lot of fun.
He rarely lets loose like that. Like that was fun to see. Like
I wish he would more
usually
often.
pretty reserved. Yeah,
you're right. He is pretty reserved, but he has a great personality.
He's hilarious too. When he gets going, man, he's hilarious.
I know.
Like,
I wish he would let loose a little bit more often.
I honestly would like to see that side of him a lot more often.
So anyway, going back to the rugby.
Back to the rugby.
So I didn't have to play during the game, so I got to sit, and I was really interested in knowing like what was going on with the game and things like that. And luckily, the game was really slow paced.
Yeah, so there was plenty of downtime.
Plenty of questions. You know, time to answer questions and things like that. So, basically, the main difference between rugby football and American football is the play clock doesn't stop.
No,
it just runs.
It's a 40-minute running clock. So 2 halves, 2 40-minute halves, running clock. You only stop for if you can't play. Like if there's an injury, if you have to stop for some reason, like if you're reviewing a play, that kind of thing. You do stop for that. The referee will stop the clock. So, and I think rugby does it a lot better than soccer because soccer has a similar running clock situation, but they add on time, like some arbitrary amount. I know somebody's keeping track of it in the sideline, but it seems like an arbitrary amount of time after the 45 minutes are done. Some asshole like raises up a little sign and says, we're going to play 3 extra minutes. Whereas in rugby, it's like, you know exactly how, there is no extra time. You stop the clock if you need to stop the clock. Like, it just makes sense.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I thought was a really cool rule is, just like American football, they do like a 2-minute warning. And then once your play is done, once that 40-minute half or whatever is done, it doesn't just stop. It's not like a whistle blows and like you're done. If the ball is moving and play is continuing, you continue to play.
Yeah, if the ball's live, if the ball's in play, you keep playing until the ball's out of play.
And it makes for a much like the guys know that the clock's up, and so like they keep trying to keep the ball alive.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because you want to keep trying to score, and you're keeping
at the end.
Going.
Well, I mean, obviously, it depends on how the game's.
Right.
Excuse me, but
and who's got control of the ball?
Right, exactly. Because if you're winning, and it's at the end of the game, you want to get the ball out. But there's a famous game between Wales and France a few years ago where they went to over 100 minutes. So a rugby game's 80 minutes.
Right.
So they played an extra 20 minutes of rugby past it wasn't extra. So there's this thing called extra time. That's what the game is tied after full time, then you go into extra time. It's overtime essentially, but this wasn't that. This was not that. This was just the game kept going for 20 minutes
after
because the ball was still alive for there were a lot of scrums, and so if there's like in that particular situation, it's very unique because they kept they had a scrum that was right. It was before the end of full time, so you have to complete that scrum, but it kept getting collapsed. It kept giving away penalties, and so they were never able to really complete that scrum. And you can't end the game on a penalty. So you can kick it out of bounds if somebody knocks it on or whatever, but if you commit a penalty, the game doesn't end on a penalty. The other team has a chance to continue play. So that particular game, there was just penalty after penalty after penalty, and it just kept going for 20 minutes.
Wow.
And that's it. So
let's talk about a scrum. So a scrum is when the ball can't... you have to restart play. Either the ball goes out of bounds or...
No, not when the ball goes out of bounds. That's a line out. We'll get to that.
Okay. What causes the ball to stop play where you have to have a scrum?
The most common case is a knock-on. If a guy... Or a forward pass. So if a guy is accidentally passes it forward because, you want to... Like, you can do a flat lateral pass, but if you're like... trying to thread the needle a little bit, anyway. Or what the most typical case is... A guy drops the ball. It's a fumble. Like a knock-on is a fumble. that goes forward.
You can't just pick it up. The other team can't just pick it up and run it back.
The other team can. They can, because they can play advantage. But if the other team doesn't gain any kind of advantage, then you'll have a scrum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a scrum is you have all the positions line up like you said before.
The
you
eight forwards.
You have your so everybody's there. They're pushing against. They're leaning against each other.
Yes.
You can't push against each other.
You can't.
Well, you can't move past basically like the center line.
You can, but only at.
Okay, walk me through a scrum. You get all the players are in position.
Yeah.
Everybody is getting set, and then
set's a good word, because I'm not going to say getting set, because that's a very key piece of vocabulary there.
Okay.
So the 8 guys will all they'll form so the front row will put their shoulders around, and so the hooker will put his arms up, like basically straight over his head, and the props come in, and the props are there. They're called props because they prop the hooker up. So the hooker will get up on top of these props essentially, and they'll grab around on their shoulders, and they get a little tight bind, so they get a little bind in, and then the seconds will come in, and they join in, and then the back row, which is called the 6, 7, and 8, they come in, and everybody has to be bound. And so the referee will call, and the scrum half is standing there with the ball flinging around, doing some other scrum half shit, just dicking around.
Yeah.
Probably complaining about something to the ref, like, "Oh, sir, shut up."
Good accent, nice.
Shut up. Fucking grow 2 inches, you bastard. Anyway, so then scrum half is waiting there, and the referee will call the scrum. So he says, bind. What is it? It's
torture kill.
No, it's like 3, because the cadence is called the scrum cadence. No, reference I don't get, sorry.
BTK
Bind,
killer.
torture, kill, BTK, serial killer, weirdo over here making a fucking serial killer reference. Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's
Seems relevant.
crouch? No, they don't say crouch anymore. Shit,
Really?
I can't remember what
Is
they
that
say.
offensive?
No, the scrum has evolved along with the rest of the game. So it's like there's videos out there on YouTube. They show from like scrums from the 70s to modern day, because they every so often will change. Every couple of years they'll change the scrum. They'll change how the rules around it. So the current rules are you have to how do they do it? Like, so they basically lean into each other, but they're not allowed to push until the ball is rolled in. So they can't. There's what's called an early push, which would then result in another.
Which
scrum.
is what happened in that Sabercats game. There was a lot of early pushes.
A lot of early pushes, or like it'll collapse or whatever. Some front rower is getting trying to get a leg up on his.
Yeah. So basically, it's a bunch of guys that are not quite leaning against each other, but they're just touching each of the two teams.
I think I've
they're
seen
just
it.
kind of touching
I know
each other.
about.
Yeah, so their heads. So like I said, the tight head and loose head prop, their heads are in to the other props, like shoulder essentially, and so they say bind, a touch, whatever. There's 3 things that they say. I can't remember what it is, but the set is when they're locked out. They're locked out, and they're this isn't good for like radio or listening or whatever, but I could show you. I could have like Rob and me do this.
We're not gonna.
Anyway, but you lock out. You're leaning into each other, and you're locked out, and you're not. No one's trying to gain any ground. But as soon as that ball is put in, that is when you have all 8 guys pushing forward all at the same time
From both teams.
So they're pushing against each other. So it's almost like it's the opposite of a tug of war. You're trying to push them back.
You want to push them back so that your hooker has a better position to get the ball back into your.
A lot of modern scrums, they don't even hook. They just try to push it back. They just try to push and get over the ball, and because you can only use your feet in a scrum. The guys who are engaged in the scrum, bound in the scrum, can only use your feet. You cannot pick it up.
Now, which team does it matter? I guess it matters who had the penalty.
Yeah, well, not penalty, but infraction.
And whoever had the infraction gets the other team. That team,
the other team
gets to put
puts the ball in. So you have control of the ball, but the other team also has like a fair contest. That's another thing that I really like about rugby.
You can't roll it towards your team.
No, well, no. You're not supposed to.
Okay, but and that can cause
People do.
and that can cause a scrum to reset or whatever.
Yeah, and it'll go scrum to the other team, or be a whatever. A short arm penalty, which is different from a full arm penalty, but I'm not going to get in. That's too
Right.
specific for this. But basically, a scrum is you're just trying to restart play after somebody knocks it on,
Right.
or commits a minor infraction.
Okay, so you're in the scrum, the ball gets pulled back, and then basically it's a lot of lateral moves. From what I remember seeing,
Yep.
it's a lot of, and not forward necessarily movement, but a lot of
That's because you watch a
diagonal
shitty rugby game.
movement across the field. There's a
Yeah.
lot of lateral passes as
Yeah.
you're trying to make forward momentum.
Yeah, that's a mark of a bad team that is
Okay.
just moving sideways across the field and not
Instead
getting
of-
forward. You got to run up the field.
mark
that
of
was
a bad
guys
team.
just gonna. It's guys that are trying to think they can get around the defense. So like you're not going to get
Right.
around the defense. They're just going
and that's it's a very Americanized. I mean, it looks like football. It looks like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it looks-
it looks like a quarterback. Like it looks like or what do you call it? A reverse. You know what I mean? Like
Pretty
where you're
much.
trying to get.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like the whole game, basically, from what I remember watching. Now, if the ball's knocked out, that's a line out.
Yeah, so that's a throw in.
Okay, so one of the
For an
cool
easy
things that
move.
I think personally, like when they do a throw in, like the team will pick a guy up so
Yeah.
that he gets higher than the other guy. Like they'll literally grab him by the legs, by the thighs, and like 2 or 3 guys will grab him and pick him up, and so that he can get the ball, and
Yeah.
then they'll
Whoa,
start
really?
running. Yeah.
Two guys, front lifter and a
Oh.
back lifter. Yeah.
So
Cool.
Okay, so
That's
there's
actually pretty
positions.
cool, though.
So a line out is a very complicated thing. So there's line out moves and stuff like that. So like then there's a lot of like subterfuge going on. There's like you're supposed to have a 1 meter gap, but guys are always trying to like close that gap a little bit.
Oh
you know,
yeah,
try-
I mean
Damn.
that's in every
a lot
sport.
of
You try
jockeying
to
position,
That's a lot
and then
of-
you'll fake it to the front, throw it to the back. You'll have a guy like there's a lot of ins and outs and what have yous with the line out.
God,
just
like,
like
what-
everything in rugby.
Seems like,
I
when
mean,
we were
life,
describing
really.
Rob earlier, that just like I don't know what you call it, the timing or the I don't know, the adapting you have to do so quickly to do something like that. Like it just. I don't know. I'm just trying to picture in my head.
Yeah.
It just seems like
Well, you have a call. You don't just do it. You have a call. Like a guy. The guy
okay. Never
somebody will be
mind.
yelling a series
Okay,
of
I
like.
always heard that.
So that's like
I
when you
don't
get
know
like
if you said it or
blue
not,
42 and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
You get those kind of calls in rugby in the line out. So you'll
Okay.
have like you'll have a trigger, and a lot of line outs will have like a trigger number.
Yeah.
Where that'll tell you like where you're going to throw the ball,
uh-huh.
and then they'll use different words like
Yeah.
I don't want to give away your secrets, but like
Fuck them.
colors or
Give away
country
last-
names. Like they'll say like if you say a city in Texas, then it's going to do this.
Fucking-
If you say a city anywhere else in the U.S., then it's going to do this. So if you say a
Copperhead
European
Road.
country, then
Oh, that's. I mean, football and baseball have been doing that for
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's
and that's typically the only time you really get that in rugby is in a line out, because that's when a
Okay.
guy is throwing the ball into
Line-out,
a different. Because in a scrum, I mean, you might have different calls in a scrum, but like you do have different calls in a scrum. But like it's more simple. Like the ball goes in and you push. Like
Yeah.
it's very simple. Whereas a line out, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And you can throw the ball to the front, to the back, to the middle. There's things you do. You throw the ball directly off the line out. Do you bring it down to the ground? Do you set up what's called a maul, which is a different thing entirely? Like,
it's yeah. I mean,
So-
there's a lot of like that's one of the cool things about rugby
it's very complex.
It's
Yeah.
very very complex. Like,
Rugby league, much more simple.
is it okay?
And honestly, for a spectator, it is I think it's better. It's more spectator friendly rugby league than rugby union. That's well, I don't know. I like them both, but it's rugby league is just more straightforward, more simple. You know.
So, well, like you were saying, it's a lot more brutal, so it's got to be a lot more straightforward.
Yeah. So with rugby league, there's no scrums really. They have a scrum. They have a scrum, but it's like a formality. Like whereas in rugby union, there's
Like
so-
the scrum is the thing in rugby.
Right, you have
union.
a scrum, and all it is just basically a guy rolling it to the back. It's just restarting play. There's no competition. Nobody's pushing. They're not pushing against each other. They just kind of lean in half-heartedly and then go back to playing.
And it's somebody grabs the ball and then the scrum falls apart and somebody picks it up and runs
No, not in rugby league. Like there's literally just like was it 5 guys in a scrum or something? There's fewer guys. There's 13 on the field.
So it's a completely. In rugby league,
in rugby league, the scrum will look completely different.
So in rugby league, there's less guys on the field.
Yeah, there's only 13 players. On
I
the
feel
field.
a bit more dirtier there too for some reason.
Yeah. well, yes and no, like because it's
damn.
So yeah, the scrum is just. They just roll it in. There's no competition for the ball. Whereas in rugby union, there's a competition for the ball. And that's one of the things that I do like philosophically about rugby. There's always a even if it's your put into the scrum, but the other team has the opportunity to steal that scrum because there is a competition for the ball. Same with the lineout. You have to throw the ball down the middle of the tunnel. There's a tunnel formed by 2 teams. And you have to throw it down the middle so that there's a competition for the ball. You're never guaranteed anything in rugby. You have to fight for everything, and which is one of the things I sort of like about the game. Nothing's given to you. You have to fight.
There you go. Yeah,
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So
Hunter, baby. You are a hunter. Seriously, that's hunter traits. Big time, all that shit.
I guess it's like. I guess I'm missing what you're saying, like with the rugby league versus a rugby union. Why is in rugby league a scrum more of a formality?
Because they don't have that competition. They're not actually packed into each other and driving against each other, pushing. They basically just sort of lean in, and the ball gets rolled in, and they just go. They just
whoever gets the ball gets the ball.
No, you roll it back to your guy. You know how you said like in rugby union, you're not allowed to just roll it to your team, and people do. They try to blur the line a little bit, but in rugby league, you do literally just roll it back to your team.
So like you just roll it to your team, and then your team grabs
and then the
it
scrum half picks it up, and you start playing. You just play. Rugby after that.
That seems like like you said, it's much more simple than
much simpler. And there's no line out. There's no line out either. So if the ball goes, if you kick the ball out of bounds, or you run out of bounds or whatever, the ball just goes to the other team, and they just
take the ball from right there. How do you restart play?
From where it went out of bounds, you come in. I think it's 15 yards or whatever, and you just you tap the ball on your foot and you just go. You just go. Yeah, no line out.
That's weird.
No competition for the ball. Nothing. You just go.
Okay, interesting.
It's your ball now. And in rugby league, you have 6 tackles, and then it's a turnover. So it's more like football where you have 4 downs.
Yeah.
So you have after 6 tackles is a turnover.
Okay, so let's talk about contact. What are the contact rules in rugby?
Can I briefly pause to go to the bathroom?
Hell
yeah,
no.
No, because we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this because we're coming up on time for the episode. So
okay, cool. Yeah,
let's
pushing
through.
We can bullshit for a second. Yeah. Okay, I'm just saying. If you need to that bad. Can he hold it or not? If you need to go, man.
I can push through.
All right.
Let's
push through.
Let's talk about the rules of contact. What are the rules of contact versus like comparatively with like American football?
Okay, so in American football, in a tackle, you do not have to wrap up. You can just smash a guy and hopefully smash him down on the ground.
Yeah, you can just get lower than him, put a shoulder into him, and flip him over backwards. And
right, or like if a wide receiver's jumping in the air to catch the ball. You can hit him as soon as he touches the ball. I think while he's still in the air.
Yeah, he has to have control of the ball. But yeah.
Right, but he's still in the air. So in rugby, you cannot hit a guy in the air. Absolutely not. So if there's kicks, typically there's no passing. But if you kick, no, there's passing, but it goes backwards, and you don't jump to catch that. But if there's a kick and a guy's jumping to catch the kick, you are not allowed to touch that guy at all unless you also are competing for the ball. But if it's clear that you're not competing for the ball and you're just hitting the guy in the air, it could be an automatic red card. I mean, they're very,
and you're
very
out of the game.
Out of the game entirely, and you might even get fined. You know, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Like so, and you're not allowed to what's called shoulder charge. You have to wrap up with your arms, meaning like you can't just like dip your shoulder and just spear a guy. You have to wrap up arms around the guy and bring him to ground.
Damn.
You can't hit a guy high. You can't.
That actually sounds. It sounds less violent.
It is. Much less.
Oh, actually, that's the thing I was going to ask you. I don't know, like you guys are going to go back and forth. When it comes to like that, the violence, like in football, like is it? Do you think it's about the same? Like I'm talking about like concussion wise and stuff like that.
Oh no,
I think
no,
it's
no.
way
it's
less.
Actually way less because like what you're saying, when you're bringing up, like I'm listening to like the way contact and whatnot. I don't know. I just had to ask.
In rugby, you keep your head out of the contact situation as much as possible.
Oh,
because you don't have a helmet.
Okay, see.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I was curious.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know how. I always hear like the toughness of these fucking guys. So like, I feel like they're just going
you
at
are.
it.
Yeah, you
But-
are going
Yeah.
at it. But the thing is like in football,
Yeah.
you can shoulder check people. Like you can, like when you're running full speed at somebody in football, they will do that because they know that they can just put their shoulder down and plow through somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In rugby, you can't do that. You
No.
have to physically wrap them up and take them to the ground.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
I mean,
So
you get big
have to-
hits. There are big hits within
Yeah.
those limitations. You can,
Yeah.
and I mean, there are big hits. I mean, it's a violent sport. It's a full contact sport.
Yeah.
But they protect players a lot more than they do in football. I feel like in football, I see things that
Yeah.
are legal hits. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How is that legal? That puts a guy under so much danger for head
Yeah.
injuries, neck injuries, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Whereas in rugby, they take that very seriously.
Oh, okay.
Over the past few years,
Interesting. Okay.
And the players
Yeah.
take it seriously too.
players do too. For by and large, even like dumbass South Africans.
Talking about
Yeah,
South
we can
Africans
fuck
like that.
We can
Although I've heard
fuck
Japanese
this?
rugby players are just wild. I've never.
kamikaze bit. That's
Basically, man, that's what I've heard. Now, I've never played rugby in Japan, and I've never played with a Japanese player.
Or against a Japanese player. I
Or
assume.
against a Japanese player, actually, in my entire rugby career.
I mean, swords
Bound
are
to
going to
have.
be. Are
But the
gonna be
reputation is
involved.
they just sort of fly into tackles, just like with no regard to their personal safety whatsoever.
That's got to be a cultural thing.
I don't know. Oh, but speaking of which, so you can't just like you got to always be on your feet in rugby. You cannot. You're never supposed to leave your feet. You have to always be able to support your own body weight. You play the game on your feet. So if you make it, you can never like dive into either a. We didn't even get into rucks, but can't dive into a ruck. You can't dive into a tackle. You can't dive into anything except for scoring a beautiful try. Swan dive into the. But no, so you gotta stay under control, and like player safety is taken very seriously in rugby.
Well, yeah, you're playing with no pads.
Yeah, I feel like in the NFL, like they pay lip service to player safety, but they protect quarterbacks for sure.
Oh yeah, because they're worth a lot of money.
Yeah, but like
yeah, it's heart and soul,
it's
baby.
so. I think just
I would think Jacob would know.
the way quarterbacks are just coddled in the NFL is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no position that's treated any differently than any other position.
Yeah, you
in
can't
rugby.
hit the quarterback after there's roughing the quarterback. There's whole like penalties for.
There's such and kickers are under kickers too.
also. Yeah,
Kickers are in a vulnerable situation because they're not like shaping to take contact. They're shaping to.
Well,
like,
speaking as somebody from like my short time playing football, like on the defensive side, like we were always told, like you count your steps. So as soon as the ball's hiked, you count your steps and you watch from when the ball's released, and then because you have 2 steps, basically, like you have 2 steps, and like if it's gonna be 3, you fall sideways. If you have too much momentum and you're going to hit the quarterback.
Oh, okay.
Or, if you're within your 2 steps, that's it. Like you can't stop. That's not a penalty. You know what I mean?
Well, right. If you're committed, if you're
already
committed into the
committed,
tackle,
yeah.
like,
and that's kind of like where we were at. Like they were just
Same
like
thing in rugby.
you go full bore and like if it happens, it happens kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I mean, in American football, like that was at least when I played, like the strategy was like to hurt the other person, but that's not really the way it is in rugby.
No, I mean,
It's-
obviously, some people. I mean, it is a violent sport, so you do get people that are
in
like
rugby
that.
league. I'm sure.
Oh yeah. But and I did have a coach once who was like his mantra was like, hit them early even if it's late. So you do want to, there's a certain amount of aggression, and you can't just like tippy toe around. Obviously, you got to be committed.
It's an aggressive sport. I mean, you can't argue that it's not an aggressive
Absolutely.
sport.
But you do it in a legal way within the confines of the game,
Right.
And they do the laws of the game, and the referee is there to protect the players, and especially on the professional level where they have 2 sideline referees, a main referee, and then a video referee, and they're all looking at everything to make sure everybody is.
Do they do
playing.
that at the level that you play at? Video referees also?
No, not video referees, but we do have 2 sideline referees. Sometimes at my level, you have to get some guy on the sideline to run the sideline referee. the assistant referee is the technical name, but we just call him like a touch judge. That's basically their job, is to say when the ball went out of bounds and where. But in the professional level, they're the eyes and ears out there. There's the main referee that's in charge of the game, and his decision is final. But he has a team around him to help make those decisions. And I do think that's the one thing I think that rugby does better than most other sports, and definitely better than football, and definitely better than soccer and basketball, and all the major sports.
Oh, if Jacob was here, he would disagree.
Well, how referees make decisions, because there's one referee who is in charge. He's the man in the middle. He is in charge. He has his assistants who can help him, and if he misses something, and they can refer to him and say, "Oh, I think there was some foul play. Number 7 hit number 10 late. You may want to take a look at that." And so they're like, "Okay, noted." And then they'll let things, when there's
they may or may not look at it.
When there's a dead ball,
really?
They'll go to
They might not even.
potential foul play by number 7. Let's take a look at that. Put it up on the big screen.
They have to wait till the dead ball?
It depends. It depends on what. So they're all communicating to each other.
Okay, gotcha.
And if it's egregious, like if it's like a terrible like high shot, shoulder to the jaw of somebody, which might happen, they might stop play. And if the guy's down on the ground, like passed out cold, you got to find out what happened to the guy. But so he'll get a word from somebody that you need to take a look at this. And like, okay, so let's take a look at this. Get on the radio with the guy upstairs and put it up on the big screen. And they'll review it, a couple angles, and like, what here's my recommendation. My recommendation is a yellow card because a common thing is a high tackle. High tackles are very common. So a high tackle, there's a decision making process. Was there, force to the head, with any mitigating factors? And so let's look at the mitigating factors. I'm like, oh, yeah, it looked like the offensive player ducked into the tackle, and so that's why you hit him in the, high in the head, essentially. And so they'll review those just a lot of times just the two guys, the main ref and the video ref, and they'll be looking at the same thing on the big screen, and he'll be looking at it on, whatever. And it doesn't take very long, it's very quick. And then so they'll give the recommendations. The head referee will be like, okay, I agree, yellow card, number 7, come here, yellow card, go off for 10 minutes, or, red. So the decision-making process and the referee, the way the game is refereed, I think makes way more sense. It's much more clear. And everything I just said is on a loudspeaker that everybody can hear. So,
okay.
Like, everybody's involved in the decision-making process.
Wow.
So, imagine if you're watching an NFL game and it's under review, and all you can hear is the announcers giving their opinion. But imagine if you could hear what the referees are saying to each other.
I don't even watch sports. I was going to make
that'd be nice, though.
Yeah. But compared to that, because they're so private, you know what the fuck is going on. They're just speculating.
Yeah, exactly.
And then everybody
open.
Versus this, they hear.
Every single
everything.
ref is mic'd up, and you can hear, especially the fans at home. Not in the stadium, you don't hear it, but they do now. Actually, in
wouldn't
Australia,
that
and New
actually
Zealand.
prevent I don't know, shit calls or any
Absolutely, it does.
What's it called? If anybody had any involvement for possibly throwing off a game or some shit like that, or shady involvement.
Yes,
the fact that they're
basketball,
open,
for example. What was that refereeing scandal in basketball recently?
Yeah.
So if you could hear their decision making process, and you say, and they're looking, and they're literally talking about every detail in frame by frame, and they'll be like, let me see that in full speed because everything looks worse in slow mo. So show me in full speed, and you hear these conversations. I think that's the thing that sets
I never
it
thought
apart.
about that. That's kind of fun. I don't want, like I said, I don't watch sports, but I get the idea of it. And I've seen it before in a lot of sports here in America. And
they just go off in their little
seems like
cloaked
Yeah,
room.
that's kind of fucked up. Yeah,
what are they saying? What are they? You don't even know what they're looking at.
Reassuring to how much faith do we have in this fucking random guy? Who did that's bullshit?
They could be talking about whatever. They know exactly. But no, you hear the conversation, you hear the back and forth, and since they're all professional referees, every single one of those people could be a main referee. They all rotate, So a sideline referee next week could be the main referee, and then I think they do have some guys that are they're specifically the video referees, the guys are skilled in looking through tape and pulling up the right angles and stuff. But but you hear that back and forth, you hear that decision making process, and so you as a fan, even if you don't agree with the decision, you hear how it was made. You follow the steps in the process, so you can't really argue with it. I mean, you may be upset with the call, you may disagree with it, but you have just heard their step-by-step breakdown of what decision to make.
Yeah. It's
And that's,
justified
to me,
because
as
you
a
hear
fan, it makes it much easier. And they flow through it much easier. There's been some recent criticism of the time it takes and the amount of TMO reviews they do, but to me, you want them to make the right call.
Right.
And I love it. You watch American football and the guy just stands up there, clicks on his little thing, he's like, offside number 98 on the defense, 5-yard penalty, first down. And like, you didn't hear how he got to that decision. And you're like, well, we're sitting. You don't understand. It was just all you get is the result. So it's much more fan friendly to be involved. Not involved, but you hear the process at least.
Yeah.
So
Norm, I just gotta say thank you for coming out and sharing all this with us. I think it was a great conversation.
Part 2 next week.
Talk about Rucks.
We gotta bring up.
Fucking working.
Talk about some famous
either.
players.
I mean,
I didn't even mention a single player.
There's you don't need to. We're just talking. I mean, there's so much. I mean, it's like having a football episode. Like, Jesus Christ, there's so much stuff you could talk about. You know what I mean?
Much, yeah.
Not me.
Right now is not the greatest time to be mentioning like going out and catching a game, but
but
Houston Aeros Football Club.
Not me.
There's Facebook page, obviously.
Yeah, we've HoustonArrows.com is our website. We got a Facebook page. We got all
nice. We'll post all that stuff up if you guys, if the community's interested. You guys got to be better than the Sabercats because apparently they were fucking terrible. I hate to hate on our Major League Rugby team, but
when they suck, they suck, man.
Yeah, if you suck, you suck. Thank you. If you suck, you suck. What are you gonna do? And on that note, I've been Rob.
I have been Pauled.
I have been Norm.
It's weird. It's hard to follow, right? I have to follow him usually because Jake signs us off.
I like to throw people
I'll
off.
continue to be Norm after this, by the way.
And on that note, we will see you guys on the next one. Jake didn't end up making it in, but it's okay. I think we had a productive podcast without him. Fuck that guy anyway.
And fuck Corona VD bullshit. COVID-19 bullshit.
It is not sexually transmitted, so.
You're good. He says it. Good.
Well, that's good to know.
Don't touch your shit.
But it is like you can, so you're basically just if you're going to do it, doggy style, that way you're not face to face breathing in each other.
Correct. You want to socially distance yourself from your sexual partner.
Still wear masks.
Oh, there you go. That's going to be the slogan of our new podcast of the podcast now. Socially distancing sexual relations.
God.
Yeah. See, Jake, this is what happens when you're not here. All right, guys. We'll catch you on the next episode. Later.
All right. See ya.